Happy Friday, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. This is David here with 4 Hour Future, and we are really excited to host a panel today talking about the environmental impact of the Build Back Better Act and the impact it'll have on our drinking water, on clean water, not just in the state of Florida, but across the country. And so really excited to be joined here today with our wonderful partners and friends across the state. We're joined here by Yaritza, who is here with the Moms Clean Air Force. So really looking forward to hearing introductions, but would love to hear from you just to introduce a little about what you do and the Moms Clean Air Force.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Yaritza Perez. I get to be the state organizer and coordinator for Moms Clean Air Force Florida. But we are a national nonprofit organization with over 100 moms and dads, or I'm sorry, 100, a million moms and dads. Huge difference, right? And we are just all focused on, creating a better future for our kids. We want to make sure that we're leaving a healthier environment and a healthier state here in Florida, but a healthier nation for our kids. I mean, I know as parents, that's what we strive for. I personally am a mom myself, so I take this work very personal. I'm also lucky enough to be one of the lucky folks who get to claim being a United States veteran. So I serve my country, so it's great to be able to, serve a country and then leave an even better country that we had was left for us. So that's my personal story. I do a lot of volunteer work within the state. Definitely got me involved with Moms Clean Air Force. And again, that's what we want to do, right? We want to clean up the air. And there's a driving force behind that. What I love so much about the work that I do is that I get to speak with like-minded folks. Sometimes it feels that whenever we're doing this type of work, you might feel a little bit isolated or alone. It may feel even sometimes that the work that we're doing may not be heard or even seen. But when we get to have conversations like this, and I'm around other like-minded folks, and we are geared toward getting something done, it's boots on the ground, and that's what I'm all about, right? That kind of gives me my little military background. It's boots on the ground. We are on there getting the work done for the people because we are the people. It also gives me an opportunity to speak with our state legislators, city leaders, community leaders. We find out and address and identify some of those neighborhoods that may have an adverse effect on the kids' health. Maybe there's something going on in the air or the water, like we're going to discuss today. And we try to bring some attention to those areas and help change legislation, maybe make sure that we're cleaning up the environment for those kids and holding those corporations accountable for some of the devastation and the things that they're leaving behind, by facing and paying attention to that bottom dollar. So I really look forward to this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for the last 2 weeks. So super, super excited to be here. Thanks again.
So, well, really glad to have you here, and thanks so much for joining. And this is a really, really excellent way to keep the conversation going. So yeah, joining us as well from South Florida, the one and only Juan. Thanks for joining. How are things going in Miami?
Busy like the rest of the state. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Well, we're hosting it, but I'm glad that I can give some input today. Thank you, Yaritza, for coming out. I'm the regional director. My name is Juan Moore. I'm the South Florida regional director for our Future Florida. And we're talking about subjects and topics that are related to us as a community, and today how the BBB will affect it. So I'm very greatly ready to get started and talking about how this will affect our community. Thanks for having me.
And it's really close to that. We're expecting hopefully to see advancement on this very soon. So this conversation is super timely. Want to introduce, of course, Bernice, our colleague in Tampa. Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Bernice. I am the regional director with For Our Future in Tampa Bay. So if you're in Hillsborough, Pinellas area, you're one of my neighbors. And I am super excited to be on today to talk about something I think is so important, which is clean water. And excited to have Yaritza with us as well.
Well, we'll go ahead and get right into it. So we're here to talk about the clean water and the environmental aspects of the Build Back Better Act, currently in the Senate, currently awaiting to see what happens here in the next few weeks or even week. And so I know Bernice has really delved into this a lot, so really wanted to turn it over to her to walk us through what some of the impact this legislation looks to have.
Absolutely. So this legislation is going to do so much for our communities. Clean water, safe water is vital to economic opportunity. It's vital to controlling the spread of disease. And we're in a pandemic right now, so that's especially important. And it's also important to provide a healthy environment for our communities to thrive in. And so when we think about Build Back Better, it's really a bold proposal that invests in clean drinking water and upgrades and modernizes our wastewater, our stormwater, and drinking water systems and infrastructure. Awesome. So when we think about clean, safe drinking water, every day millions of Americans drink lead-contaminated water, which poses serious and irreversible health risks. Particularly to children. This impacts them at more greatly than it does impact adults. And so low-income communities and communities of color are more likely to be served by these water systems that consistently violate federal drinking water standards and face inadequate government response. We can move to the next slide. And the Build Back Better agenda, this act would actually dig up the millions of lead pipes and service lines, which are the primary source of lead contamination, and replace them at no cost to homeowners. So I just want to take a second and allow space for folks on the panel to think about what kind of impact is this going to have on our families and our communities if our water is not and basically lead contaminated.
Well, I when I address things like clean water and safe drinking water and clean air, immediately, living here in Homestead, the most southern part of Miami, I get to be around farmers and see the direct effect of unclean water. But also when you're talking about drinking water, you look at stories like in Flint, and the horrendous atrocities that happened from the systems that were providing water. And just, again, I say things like climate justice are tied to social justice and economic justice. You can't get away from one or the other. So just it's unfortunate that our capitalist nation, in any capitalist nation, you'll see a trickle down effect. And usually underserved communities are the ones that are affected greatly by infrastructure and unsafe drinking water and unclean air.
Yeah, that's completely that you hit every point on right on the head. It's so true, and it's sad to think that in today's age, we're about to be in 2022, and Flint still has dirty water. Dude, there's still people, and it had been going on for years. Leaders were aware of this. And things, they're still taking their time on fixing Flint. Can you imagine, God forbid, if that starts to crumble literally in every major city? And we're not even talking about some of these rural areas where a good portion of, folks do live as well. How are we going to have the resources to put into that? Where everyone likes to complain on how bad things are. So here we are. We're about to put in some changes. It's coming in through this bill. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but when it's changed, not uncomfortable, right? But the most important part is putting the focus on those communities who need it first, who need it the most, instead of hey, let's go into this new neighborhood that's going to be, probably for better, maybe medium income families, what I'm saying? For completely forget about it and negating these families, these historic neighborhoods that our people, let's be real, live in. Right? Why are we not focusing our efforts back into that? Why do we continue to build new plazas and parking lots when we can easily go back and fix, just like our grandparents did back in the day, right? If it ain't broke, Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are you going to replace it? Like, we can easily just go back to some of these communities and make small adjustments. It will greatly affect, not only validate those people and their feelings and their health, but now they're going to work better. They're going to go to school now, and then they're going to just become better citizens. And isn't that what we want essentially, for our kids to become better than who we are now? If we don't focus the money and this infrastructure and all these funds and the funds into those communities, then what are we really doing? Just adding more damage to the pot, right? Great points.
Yeah, loved hearing that. And I know that the one thing I really took away from this is, I mean, this simple act of replacing pipes like this is such an important equalizing force, because it shouldn't be a privilege to have clean drinking water when you open the tap. It shouldn't be the case that in this part of town you just buy bottled water, because guess what, you can't trust the water that just that's serviced to your house.
And what about those folks who can't afford buying a new bottle of water every day? Because, like, let's be real, one small bottle of water is $1. That's insanity. First of all, it's a human right. It's a basic human right to be able to have access to fresh, clean drinking water.
And like I just like to toss in there that it shouldn't be allowed, or it's a shame that our leaders would even think about voting against something that would provide such relief at any given moment, but especially during a pandemic. It shouldn't be allowed. You know, this is a non-political issue, right? It's a human rights issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think water is, if I am correct, I think water is included in the list of human rights, like by the UN. So, okay, I'm right. Awesome. I'm like thinking back to college. So when we think about clean water as a human right, there's no reason why our children should be drinking water that's been contaminated by lead and different things that are going to impact their health. When we have the ability to change that. And so, you know, shame on folks who don't support that. We need these changes to happen, and they should have already happened, to be honest with you, but the second best time for it to happen is right now. All right, we can go ahead and move. Thank you. I was going to say we can move to the next slide. So thinking about the Safe Drinking Water Act, this was actually passed by Congress in 1974. So when we're talking about federal regulations around water, this is one of them. And it was enacted to protect public health by regulating the public drinking water supply from both man-made and naturally occurring contaminants. And this was actually passed with public pressure and bipartisan support. And so it's something that actually the anniversary is coming up. And we want to just name and recognize that this is a law that we have in place that really helps keep up the quality standards of water so our communities can thrive. So speaking of water, we can also talk about how Build Back Better will impact disaster resiliency. So after heavy rainfall, stormwater can actually overwhelm our wastewater treatment systems, and it could cause them to overflow with a mix of stormwater and sewage. This mixture can contaminate drinking water. It can flood streets and homes, and it can make people sick. This usually happens in areas that can't afford to update their drainage systems. And we know that seawalls are only a temporary fix to these problems. I see you nodding your head, Yaritza. Go ahead and come off mute and share.
I know, like every time you're saying, I'm like, yes, that's so true. Like, it's wild to think that logically we think everyone should have access to clean drinking water. The fact that we have to voice this to our leaders, like, hey, don't forget about us. We also need clean water. It still blows my mind. Like, what do you mean we still have to ask for this one basic right? But then also to focus on like this, how you were just talking about the stormwater surge. We're already swampy here in Florida. Like the state is a swamp. We're surrounded by water. We live on, there's water everywhere. To think about whenever we have these new developments, how we're not creating the right retention ponds or the right amount of them, or if they're even doing it correctly. Sometimes they're focusing, or maybe they'll rely on some of the old infrastructure, which is usually around some of our neighborhoods, like for those low-lying communities, for those Black and brown communities, right? So whenever they start overflowing, how you're talking about all the contaminated water, where does it end up? Literally in our parking lots, in our backyards. And now our kids are like literally walking through this to get to school or to go outside and play. It's wild, the fact that we have to fight so hard for something that's just what should be known, or logically a basic human right, but how important it is for folks who are living in those communities to be aware of this type of information, right? To know that they have to go out to our leaders like, hey, make sure that, you know, all these resources, all this new funding that's coming through is coming to my neighborhood, and it doesn't end up in this new developing neighborhood or this new development that's completely inland that doesn't get devastated by some of the climate impacts that we're facing, by some of the infrastructure impacts that we have to deal with. Like there's a lot of things that fall, like one thing leads to another, and we're like how Juan was talking about, like we're all of that is connected. What's important is that my people, mi gente, our folks, we the people, find out about this information and that we put action to it, right? To make sure that our voices are heard, because we are many. There's plenty of us. We just got to get out there and be about that action, right? The most important thing is to focus that none of this overflow ends up in our neighborhoods. Because could you imagine? I can't imagine walking outside, like, you know, after a nasty storm, having to deal with the things that come with dealing with storm surges and storms, period, as a Floridian, to now have to worry about the city's wastewater contaminating my backyard. That's wild.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that this often impacts communities of color. Like when we're talking about brown, Black, Indigenous communities that are being affected by these issues, and it's almost like if you don't know about it, you wouldn't picture it happening, right? Until you hear about it and you're like, what do you mean there's like sewage water that mixes with it? But the reality is this is something that happens every day in communities. And one of the great things about Build Back Better is it looks to address and fix some of these old infrastructures so that we no longer have these same issues, and that our communities can have clean water. We can move to the next slide. And so Biden's plan is going to invest in those communities that are impacted by upgrading them. So thinking about improving filtration systems and creating green infrastructure through parks, green roofs, and rain gardens to absorb and capture rainfall. The other thing it would do is it would make these communities more resilient to the impacts of climate change, because it's mitigating flooding during extreme storms and helping to cool off these neighborhoods during heat waves as well. Because the reality is every year the planet is getting hotter and hotter. And especially in Florida, I'm sure y'all have noticed, is getting hotter and hotter every summer. And so thinking about how we can also build infrastructure that not only addresses the issues of stormwater mixing with sewage, but also infrastructure that addresses climate change and the severe impacts that we're already facing from climate change. Build Back Better does that. And that's why I think it's an amazing, amazing act and would do so much good for our communities.
Yeah, I was going to say, we keep on saying, like, you know, areas and places that, I mean, it happens here in Miami more often than not, especially during the storm. I had one of my grandparents die in Andrew here in Homestead. I've had, you know, I've lived in hurricanes where we've been weeks without light and water. And just think, even though we've made it through, imagine money not going in and being invested into those things, and how much money will be invested through the BBB. But I'd like to, again, also talk about, you heard me say it on several panels, what also comes to mind was the incident that happened over on Collins Avenue with the collapse over here in Miami. So a lot of these things encompassed that are to fix, a widespread problem. You can see it on a micro here or there where you live, or even here where I live. So it's really important that our leaders get on board, stop playing politics, and realize that, without proper infrastructure, without proper health, high health, high happiness yields high performance. That's one thing I always tell my team.
Sorry, I was talking on mute there. Absolutely. And so we would be remiss if we left you all without a call to action. So we we definitely have one for you. We'd like to ask y'all to support climate action and the Build Back Better Act. Sign the petition today and make your voice heard. We're going to drop the petition in the comments for y'all. So please sign. It takes just a couple minutes, and it'll make a huge difference to letting our senators know that we need this act to pass, and that climate justice is a priority. Awesome. And before we hop off today, I want to leave space for Yaritza to share with folks how can they get connected to Moms Clean Air Force?
You can definitely check us out online through all social media platforms we are on. I think except for TikTok. We're not there yet, but we're definitely moving. We're on momscleanairforce.org. You can find the state or the region that you live in. Click on there, and you can find out who are your coordinators in your state. If not, you can find out. We literally break it down for you. We show you how you can contact Congress, who to call, what to say when you call. We have all of that information ready to go for you, and we have it in Spanish too. So if you need any kind of help, any kind of assistance, you want to go to momscleanairforce.org. Check us out on Facebook. Each state has its own individual group page, but we also have a national page as well. Also, on our Spanish side of the house, it's Ecomadres, right? We love to encompass those three portions: the ecosystem, las madres, which are the moms, and the comadres, which are like the tias and the other women. For the most part, the couch furniture does not move in the house unless mommy says it's okay that she can move. So taking that into consideration, and the fact that we love having our fair share of cafecitos, moms like to sit down and have a conversation. And that's essentially where we started from, is having a conversation over some coffee and finding out, hey, what's going on with, Fulana's son? He's getting sick and he has asthma, which is rare. And, Susan's son, their kid is also getting sick. And we're starting to make that connection, because that's how moms work, right? There's a reason, there's a rhyme and a reason for everything. And that's what we've done as a community. We've gotten together. So you can definitely check us out online for that as well. We're actually in the process of translating into even more languages. So be on the lookout for that as well. But again, check out on our website. We will give you a breakdown on how to, hear your voice or get your voice heard for this Build Back Better, who to call, how to call them. And if you know that your representative may not be on board, so what? Call them anyways. Your voice still matters, and it is very important. That squeaky wheel will get the oil. So trust me, just keep on calling. Have your cousins and family call them. Have your neighbors call, because this is vital to our future, our children's future. These little crumb snatchers are going to be the ones who are protecting us when we are at an age that we won't be able to speak and stand up for ourselves. We want to make sure that we are implementing and impacting them in the most positive way possible. And if we can't show them that their water, the air can't be clean, we can't even provide them with that, then how on earth do we expect them to thrive and be better than us, right? I know in the military, they taught us to leave everything better than how you found it. And that's what I love to do. I swore an oath to defend this country, and that oath is not it does not expire ever. And if that means that through climate advocacy, that's how I serve, then let's go. Everyone wants to serve in some capacity. This is the best way that you can do it. If you have any questions, feel free. My contact information is also on that website. Reach out. We can do this together. And if not, then if we don't have those resources or answers, trust me, we will find them for you. It's all about getting that action, right? It's all about that action and getting things done.
Awesome. Well, we can go ahead and move to the last slide. Want to invite y'all to join For Our Future on our Facebook groups. That's the best way to keep in touch with us. We're always posting about our events that are happening and anything that's coming up locally. So definitely go to forflorida.us/Facebook groups to join our Facebook groups. And we will post a link in the chat in just a second. I want to take a moment to thank Yaritza so much for joining us. We appreciate you for being here. I think your perspective that you brought to the panel was like really powerful. So I'm super glad that we got to connect with you and have you join us today. So thank you so much.
Thanks again for this amazing opportunity and this invite. And I know that this isn't going to be the last of our conversations. I look forward to 2022 and getting some work done with y'all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To everyone who's watching, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate y'all and hope that you have an amazing day. Take care, everyone.